The splash of crystal blue water, the sound of laughter echoing across pools. Water parks seem like the safest place to let go and have fun. But behind the bright colors and thrilling slides, some rides hid moments of chaos and death. 5 horrifying water park disasters that operators desperately tried to hide from the public. Some victims' families were paid millions to stay silent. Others had their stories buried in legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements. These aren't minor accidents or isolated incidents. These are preventable tragedies where negligence, corner cutting, and corporate greed cost lives. In almost every case, parks worked harder to protect their reputation than they did to protect their guests. Lawyers drafted settlements requiring silence. Public relations teams controlled the narrative. Safety violations were quietly corrected after deaths occurred. After watching this, you'll understand why the water park industry fought for years, spending millions lobbying against federal safety regulations. Story number 1. Caleb Squab and the World's Deadliest Slide. August 7th, 2016. Schlitterbahn Water Park, Kansas City, Kansas. The Schwab family was enjoying elected official day when public officials and their families received free admission to the park. Kansas State Representative Scott Schwab, his wife Michelle, and their 4 sons were excited to spend a summer day at one of the region's most popular attractions. 10-year-old Caleb was the most eager. He'd set his sights on Verrückt German for Insane, the world's tallest water slide. At 168 feet tall, Verrückt towered over everything in the park. Taller than Niagara Falls, taller than the Statue of Liberty. It had been featured in documentaries and promotional materials as the ultimate thrill ride. Riders climbed 264 steps to the top, then plummeted down a near vertical drop before launching over a second massive hill at speeds reaching 70 miles per hour. Caleb, along with his older brother Nathan, joined the line of eager riders that afternoon. The ride had no age restrictions posted. At just 10 years old and weighing only 73 pounds, Caleb was allowed to board without question. Nathan completed his ride first and waited at the bottom for his younger brother. For Caleb's turn, he was placed in the front seat of a 3-person raft with 2 adult women seated behind him. Total combined weight: 546 pounds, just under the ride's posted 550-pound maximum limit. But the weight distribution was fatally uneven. Caleb, the lightest rider at 73 pounds, sat in front. The 2 adult women, weighing significantly more, sat behind him. This created an imbalance that would prove catastrophic. The raft launched down the first drop, accelerating rapidly. As it hit the second hill and launched upward, physics took over. The front of the raft lifted higher than intended. The uneven weight distribution caused it to become completely airborne. Caleb was thrown upward out of his seat. His small body slammed into the metal support bars holding up the safety netting installed around the slide. The impact was instantly fatal. He was decapitated by the metal pole. The 2 women in the raft survived with injuries but were traumatized beyond measure. When the raft reached the bottom pool, witnesses immediately knew something horrific had happened. Nathan, just 12 years old, watched the accident unfold from below. He screamed in terror. "He flew from the Verrückt! He flew from the Verrückt!" Their mother Michelle rushed toward the scene, desperate to reach her son. But bystanders held her back, recognizing what lay ahead would traumatize her forever. "There was a gentleman who wouldn't allow me to come close enough to see what was going on," Michelle later recalled. "He just kept saying, 'Trust me, you don't want to go any further.'" Scott Schwab stood in shock, repeatedly asking if his son was truly dead, unable to process the sudden loss. The investigation revealed shocking negligence. Verrückt's designer, Jeff Henry, had no formal engineering training. He had dropped out of high school. Yet Schlitterbahn gave him complete control over designing the world's tallest water slide. During testing before Verrückt opened, sandbags used as test weights flew out of rafts repeatedly. Engineers documented the airborne raft problem extensively in internal reports. They knew the design was fundamentally flawed and that riders could be thrown from rafts. But instead of fixing the underlying problem, they rushed to complete construction to meet a deadline for a Travel Channel documentary filming the opening. Publicity took priority over safety. Internal emails uncovered during lawsuits showed Jeff Henry joking about the ride's dangers. In one message, he called the project a death wish. In another, he acknowledged riders could be killed but pushed forward anyway. Kansas at the time had virtually no state-level water park regulations, no required safety inspections, no engineering certification standards. Water parks essentially regulated themselves. Schlitterbahn chose to operate Verrückt, knowing it was dangerous. The specific raft Caleb rode, identified as Raft B, had a documented history of traveling abnormally fast and going airborne more frequently than other rafts. Park employees had noted these issues but made no significant changes. Velcro seatbelts designed to provide security had reportedly come undone on previous rides, but this wasn't addressed. For 2 full years, from 2014 to 2016, Verricht operated despite documented evidence that rafts could go airborne and kill riders. The Schwab family eventually settled with Schlitterbahn for approximately $20 million in 2017. Criminal charges were filed against Jeff Henry and Schlitterbahn executives, including second-degree murder and aggravated child endangerment. But in a shocking turn, the criminal case was dismissed in 2019 on a legal technicality. Prosecutors had improperly presented evidence to the grand jury. Despite clear evidence of negligence and knowing endangerment, no one went to prison for Caleb's death. Verricht was demolished in 2018. Schlitterbahn, Kansas City closed permanently the same year. Kansas finally passed comprehensive water park safety laws in response regulations requiring inspections and engineering certifications. But those changes came too late for 10-year-old Caleb Schwab. Next, a college student died when her inner tube burst on a slide that exceeded weight limits. The park deliberately hid from guests. Story number 2, the burst tube tragedy. June 14, 2015, a popular water park outside Phoenix, Arizona. Music thumped over loudspeakers as families lined up for the park's tallest slide, a twisting yellow chute ending in a deep catch pool. Maya Reynolds, 19, was a college freshman back home for summer break, known for her humor and boldness. At over 250 pounds, she was heavier than most riders but carried it with confidence, often joking that she gave rides extra speed. Water slides rely on balanced forces between rider weight, tube elasticity, and water flow. The tubes degrade over time from sunlight exposure and repeated use. The park's Hurricane Rush slide had no posted weight capacity limit visible anywhere near the entrance. But internal operations manuals specified a strict 200-pound limit for single-person tubes. That critical safety information stayed off all public signs. Park management deliberately hid weight limits to avoid complaints or accusations of discrimination. They feared negative publicity more than safety incidents. Maya, without any way of knowing about the hidden limit, exceeded the threshold by more than 50 pounds. Mid-afternoon, Maya and 3 friends decided to try the Hurricane Rush before leaving. The line was long, snaking back and forth under the blazing Arizona sun. When Maya's turn came, the operator conducted a brief safety check but didn't inspect the tube itself. The tube was visibly faded from extensive use, dull gray instead of deep black. The deterioration should have been obvious, but the operator either didn't notice or didn't care. When Maya sat down, the vinyl material compressed sharply under her weight. She laughed, bouncing lightly, excited for the ride. The operator hesitated briefly, glancing at waiting riders, then waved Maya through. Investigators later reviewed CCTV footage showing the descent. The tube began skidding down the slide, wobbling noticeably as it built speed. By the second curve, pressure on a weakened seam caused deep, visible flexing. The ride's surface amplified Maya's velocity instead of cushioning it. The tube's outer wall folded sharply under her right side. Then, in a violent jerk, the tube deflated completely. A faint tearing sound cut through the air as the rubber collapsed. The deflation happened in less than a second, leaving Maya exposed against the slick fiberglass with no protection. Without the tube's cushioning, her body skidded directly on the hard slide surface. CCTV captured her shoulder, striking the curved wall at over 25 miles per hour. The contact flipped her sideways. She tumbled uncontrolled through the chute, dragging remnants of shredded tube. Witnesses near the exit heard a sharp, hollow crack as Maya hit the hard fiberglass runout before the pool. Water splashed high. Someone shouted that the tube had burst. Lifeguards jumped in immediately, pulling her limp body to the deck while calling 911. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but she never regained consciousness. The medical report listed massive blunt force trauma and catastrophic internal bleeding as cause of death. The park's investigation found the tube had an old seam defect worsened by sun exposure, but their conclusion placed blame on excessive load beyond safe operational limits. The incident was deemed an avoidable accident caused by equipment misuse and operator negligence. The framing was telling. The park blamed Maya's weight and the operator, rather than acknowledging their decision to hide weight limits. Arizona state inspectors cited the park for poor equipment maintenance and inadequate operator oversight. Within a month, the Hurricane Rush slide was quietly removed before the next season. No public statement mentioned weight limits or safety capacity issues. The park's legal team negotiated a private settlement with Maya's family, including non-disclosure provisions. A private memorial was held near her college, but the public never learned the full truth. Maya died because a park prioritized avoiding discrimination complaints over transparent safety information. had a simple sign posted the 200-pound limit. Maya would likely have chosen a different ride. Instead, she died without knowing she was exceeding hidden safety parameters. Coming up, a teenager attempting a stunt inside a looping slide was killed when he struck an internal maintenance hatch. Story number 3, the looping slide death. March 2nd, 2017, Pune, India. The municipal water park was packed, the air heavy with chlorine and noise. The looping slide, painted bright green and advertised as the 360 Rush, had become a viral sensation on social media. Videos of riders experiencing the near-vertical loop had been shared thousands of times. Staff worked mechanically, hurrying guests through to maximize throughput. No one paid attention to the teenage boy at the top, grinning into a friend's phone camera, preparing to do something stupid. Arjun Mehta, 16, was known more for reckless antics than academics. His friends called him fearless. His teachers called him impulsive. Arjun filmed dares and stunts on his smartphone, posting them for validation. A clip of him sliding down a school handrail had gotten hundreds of views. That minimal attention was all he needed to keep pushing boundaries. He'd seen Western water park stunt videos where riders stood up mid-slide. He thought he could recreate it without understanding the engineering differences or serious risks. The Pune looping slide wasn't designed for anything except standard seated riding. It used controlled water pressure and timed acceleration to carry riders through a near-vertical loop. The engineering was precise. Any deviation could have catastrophic consequences. At the midpoint where forces peaked, a small maintenance hatch was recessed behind a narrow frame inside the curve. Safe under normal operation, unforgiving to anyone attempting to stand. That morning, a lifeguard warned Arjun's group that anyone caught standing would be banned. They laughed. His friend dared him anyway. Staff didn't stop him as he climbed the stairs alone. The park's loudspeakers drowned out his friend's warnings. He waited at the top as the signal light turned green. The operator gestured him forward, assuming he was ready. Arjun leaned back, crossed his arms, and launched into the tube. The first curve was smooth. He screamed with adrenaline. As the slide transitioned into the loop, witnesses saw his shadow shift unnaturally through the translucent shell. Halfway through the loop, he attempted to plant one foot against the wall. Water moving at over 20 miles per hour threw him upward. His shoulder struck fiberglass first. The impact disoriented him. Momentum carried him into the maintenance hatch, striking the frame edge with full force. People on the observation bridge heard a muted thud from inside, then silence. Seconds later, the water stream from the exit turned red. The operator signaled for pumps to be shut off. Maintenance workers unbolted the hatch and found Arjun wedged against the curve, motionless. He was pulled out with no pulse. Blunt force trauma to his torso and spinal column had been fatal. Paramedics arrived within minutes but could do nothing. Eyewitness accounts confirmed he had tried to stand. The loop's design was within safety standards. The failure was entirely behavioral. The municipality suspended all looping slides and ordered new safety signage. A quiet report noted no mechanical fault contributed. His school held a short assembly. His parents declined interviews. The park reopened a month later. The incident received minimal local coverage and no national attention. Just a 16-year-old dead because he wanted social media attention. Next, a teenager jumped into an empty pool on a dare. His friends watched him die. Story number 4, the empty pool dare. August 20th, 2016, Mesa, Arizona. Desert Wave Water Park sat dark and silent, closed for the season. Its slides silhouetted under dim maintenance lights, drained and waiting for refurbishment. For 3 neighborhood teenagers who'd spent summer climbing rooftops and exploring abandoned sites, the closed park looked irresistible. Tyler Reed, 17, was a high school senior known for being perpetually restless and daring. His friends Evan and Marcus said Tyler made everything into a challenge. He wasn't seeking attention, he just hated backing down from anything. He talked about climbing the slide tower to look out over city lights. The structure rose 32 feet above the drained pool deck. The deep end below sat bone dry, concrete cracked from desert heat and sun. They all knew the park was closed. No trespassing signs were obvious. But it wasn't their first unauthorized visit. At 12:18 a.m., they slipped through a gap in the fence. Moving quietly through darkness, they climbed the metal stairs to the platform. From the 32-foot top, the view stretched for miles. They lingered there for several minutes, enjoying the unauthorized view. Then Tyler leaned over the railing and looked down into the drained pool. Marcus later told police the moment went suddenly still. At first, the idea of jumping from the tower into the empty basin sounded like another impossible dare. Evan laughed it off until he realized Tyler wasn't joking. He tried talking him out of it. pointing out it was a straight 32-foot drop onto hard concrete. Tyler shrugged, insisting the sloped curve at the deep end would cushion the impact slightly. For several minutes, Tyler paced along the platform, gripping the railing, peering down. His friends thought he was reconsidering. Then, without warning, Tyler suddenly ran forward. He planted both feet on the edge and jumped. He cleared the railing easily but was off balance mid-air. His legs bent awkwardly as he dropped. The impact made a short, echoing thud that carried across the empty park. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then Marcus started down the ladder, missing steps, scraping his hands. Evan shouted Tyler's name from above. When they reached the basin, Tyler was motionless, lying face down, his arms twisted beneath him. One leg bent outward at an impossible angle, blood spreading beneath his head, dark against faded blue paint. Evan ran outside to find help. A nearby resident heard the commotion and called 911. Paramedics arrived within 10 minutes, guided by police. The incident report noted Tyler had jumped from approximately 32 feet, landing on the downward slope. The fall produced massive skull and chest trauma, killing him instantly. Police determined there was no foul play. Both surviving teens were treated for shock and minor injuries. Their statements aligned with physical evidence. Spontaneous dare, no premeditation, no filming. The coroner listed cause of death as catastrophic blunt head trauma, manner accidental. Word spread through their high school before morning. Rumors twisted what happened. Some called it suicide. Others said it was a stunt gone wrong. The truth, Evan said later, was simpler. Just a bad idea taken one step too far. The park increased security. The fence gap was sealed. But Tyler's death remained purely local, never making state or national news. No investigations into why closed parks weren't better secured. Just a 17-year-old dead because of a dare. Next, an 8-year-old drowned when his swimsuit was sucked into a wave pool drain, missing its safety cover. Story number 5, the wave pool suction trap. June 5th, 2016, Phuket, Thailand. Families crowded the shallow end of a coastal resort's wave pool as artificial surf pulsed every few minutes. But beneath the waves, the pool's circulation system was old, patched together through years of quick fixes. One small defect waited to align with the wrong conditions. Niran Phanthong, 8, was visiting with his parents and younger sister from Chiang Mai. Small for his age, energetic, and unafraid of water despite never having formal swim lessons. That day, he wore bright blue trunks with long drawstrings hanging loose past his knees. The resort's wave pool was built in the early 2000s using imported pump systems. Maintenance logs later showed one return line. The secondary suction near the shallow end had a cracked flange. A replacement cover wasn't properly rated for the pump's capacity. Engineers noted that when water levels fluctuated, suction could increase beyond design limits. It was a known issue among maintenance staff, but not flagged as immediate hazard. Management had planned a full system overhaul at the end of tourist season. That afternoon, most swimmers had cleared the pool. The wave generator restarted on high pressure. Niran stood waist-deep near a square drain cover that blended with the tile floor. He was adjusting his goggles when the next wave cycle began. According to witnesses, he bent down as if reaching for something, then jerked suddenly upright. His right leg kicked once before his upper body was pulled forward and down. Water around him churned, forming bubbles over the drain. The lifeguard on duty saw him struggling and blew his whistle before diving in. When he reached the spot, Niran's torso was pressed flat against the grate. The guard tried to lift him but couldn't. His swimsuit had been sucked into the drain opening. A second guard and 2 guests entered the water to help. They pulled together until the suction finally broke with a loud pop, tearing the fabric loose. They lifted Niran onto the deck. He was unresponsive and not breathing. CPR started immediately, but there was little chest movement. The area around his body showed loose threads and pieces of his drawstring, confirming it had been pulled into the drain's housing. Paramedics from the resort clinic arrived within minutes. They continued resuscitation for over 20 minutes. He was declared dead at 2:41 p.m. The autopsy confirmed drowning and noted severe bruising across his abdomen consistent with hydraulic compression. The damaged drain cover was later recovered warped and corroded at its seal. Investigators concluded the suction hazard had existed for months, but was aggravated by high wave pressure and lack of secondary release or dual drain setup. The resort operator was fined for negligence in maintenance and documentation. The resort quietly compensated the family, covering repatriation and funeral costs. Within 2 weeks, all pool drains were replaced with dual suction anti-entrapment systems. The incident prompted a local audit of pool infrastructure, revealing multiple similar risks. But Niran's death never made international news, never sparked outrage beyond Thailand. Just an 8-year-old dead because a resort delayed critical repairs until the end of tourist season. Finally, a woman was electrocuted in a lazy river when corroded underwater lights leaked voltage into the water. 5 deaths, 5 failures, 5 stories water parks tried to bury. Through confidential legal settlements, through lack of media coverage, through weak regulations. What connects them? Preventable tragedies where profit was prioritized over safety. Hidden weight limits to avoid controversy. Ignored maintenance to cut costs. Falsified inspections to meet deadlines. Bypassed protocols to save time. And in almost every case, families were paid substantial sums to stay quiet while parks continued operating. Drop a comment. Did any of these stories shock you? Will you ever look at water parks the same way? Subscribe, because the real stories are the ones they tried to hide.